So anyway, moving on to a rather topical issue, homosexuality. For what it's worth, I'm not gay myself, but you know, I don't have a problem with homosexuality at all. So, and you know, and it irritates me when people use their high morals set down by God to deride homosexuals, women and blacks and whoever else. I mean, it gets on my bloody tits, frankly. But you know, let's set aside first the whole debate on whether there are two discrete states known as straight and gay. You know, because I doubt that there are actually two clearly segmented boxes, one saying straight, one saying gay. But you know, that debate would take forever. But anyway, so let's just stick to the issue at hand. Let's just assume there is straight and there is gay, and there's nothing in between. Okay. You know, I've read the Gospels a bunch of times, you know, bits at a time, whole sections, whole Gospels. I mean, over a long period of time, and I can't, to be honest, I really can't remember Jesus ever mentioning homosexuality. And if you do a Google search or anything, it doesn't come up. I'm pretty sure Jesus never really mentioned homosexuality ever. I've not found anything which suggests he even mentioned it. The Old Testament mentions homosexuality though. So if we accept that the laws and rules of the Old Testament are in effect, you know, unless Jesus specifically says something against them, which is the logic we're pursuing, you know, it says in Leviticus 18:22, "You shall not lie with a man as with a woman. It is an abomination." You know, Leviticus 20:13 goes on and says, "If a man lies with a man as with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination. They shall be put to death. Their blood is upon them." Oh, bloody hell, you know. Jesus. I mean, well, sorry, God, Jesus, God, sorry, shit. I mean, really, that's pretty strongly worded stuff, isn't it? But, you know, the problem with these sanctions against homosexuals, namely killing them, is that they go against Jesus' teachings. Okay, you know, Jesus didn't mention homosexuals, but he does talk of various kinds of sinners and, you know, people who are suffering from illnesses and, you know, prostitutes and all sorts of other people who weren't desirable. And you know what? Jesus, gentle Jesus, he spent time with them. He loved them. You know, back then, leprosy was a real problem. He didn't care. He spent time with lepers. He touched them. He talked to them, you know. And those who committed sins, he forgave them. Jesus is well known for this. This is what Jesus is all about, right? Yeah, hallelujah. I mean, come on, you know, God, he lived with people who were hated by everyone because they were either disease-ridden or committing heinous sins. And you know what? He lived with them, and he loved them, and he forgave them even. You know, he certainly didn't favour death by stoning or other means. And he certainly didn't favour hurting people. I mean, not even the worst kinds of sinners, you know. Now, we could say that Jesus' lack of talk about homosexuality is a sure sign he agrees with the Old Testament, you know. Contrariwise, we could say that it's a surefire sign that he didn't even view homosexuality as a sin or a bad thing, as he certainly doesn't mention, he does mention other sins specifically, so why doesn't he mention homosexuality if it's such a bloody big sin? I mean, it is possible he did speak about homosexuality, but for whatever reason it wasn't recorded, or it was taken out of the extant documents. You know, but let's stick to what is actually recorded and survives. You know, because otherwise we can't have any sort of meaningful discussion. It's just all pie in the sky stuff. You know. Okay, so let's get back to this point. Jesus forgave all. Okay, that's a fairly fundamental part of Christianity. He even said, rather famously, to love your enemy as you love yourself. For what reward is there in heaven if you love only your friends and those who are good to you? Because, as Jesus says himself, even tax collectors love their friends. So, you know, there's not really anything special about loving only those that are nice and good to you. Right? Does that sound like a philosophy that would support death by stoning, burning, strangulation, if I can even bloody say it, or flogging for, quote, sinful groups? You know? Does it really sound like Jesus would support that? Does that sound like the philosophy of killing people? No, it doesn't. You know? And that, I mean, that's of course, once again, setting aside the issue that Jesus may not even have thought homosexuality was a sin. Now, as science progresses, it must naturally inform and shape philosophy, and that includes religious philosophy. If you want to just stick to your dogma, stick to your dogma in the face of evidence, then you are basically narrow-minded and, frankly shouldn't be bothered with. I mean, you're an idiot. End of. Everyone has to deal with the real world. Okay? If, you keep your head in the sand, you're going to blow yourself up. If I, stick my head in the sand, oh yeah, nothing's going to happen to me, I just walk out in front of a car one day and get run over because I'm such a bloody idiot. I might have copious amounts of sex unprotected and then catch AIDS, okay? So, you've got to stare facts in the face, or otherwise you're only leading yourself down a dark alley waiting to be mugged. So everyone has to look at the scientific evidence, everyone has to look at the facts and engage with those facts. And many religious folks are in fact very intelligent and, do engage with evidence. I'm not saying that everyone who's religious or holds religious convictions is an imbecile. I'm just saying, that unless you are an idiot, your philosophy and your religion and your ideas and ideas generally have to be shaped by science, okay? I really don't see how that's debatable. Now, there is an increasing body of evidence, I believe. I've certainly read articles about this. I mean, if you Google it, there's a bunch of stuff. Although it's not, it is slightly controversial, but there are a lot of studies apparently which show that homosexuality may be inbuilt somehow. Whether it's genetic or some random freak of how you were brought up, gayness is not something one can help. And when I say the way you were brought up, I don't actually mean that you were brought up without good morals in a corrupt environment and that's why you're gay. I mean, just something really random, really totally random might be the root cause of why you went down the gay path as opposed to the straight path. Just like something really random probably dictated why navy blue is my favourite colour and not bloody cornflower blue. I mean, why? I mean, I don't know. It just is. I'm sure there's a bunch of evidence that homosexuality is less rife in areas or groups of strong religious conviction than in secular ones. But that's obviously more likely that if there is any difference between those two groups, it's more likely that it's because religious people are obviously incapable of admitting, even to themselves, that they're homosexual, whereas in secular sort of societies and households like mine, it's not really an issue, or it's a minimal issue. But anyway, I think it's fairly likely that homosexuality is not something one chooses. I mean, setting aside all the testimony from gay people supporting that notion, I, as a straight man, never woke up one day and went, oh, you know what, I think I'm going to start fancying blokes. I think I'm going to start fancying women. I mean, it's crazy. I just fancy women. I realised at some point quite early on, actually, I don't know, about 5 or something, I realised that women were somehow very pleasing to me in a way that men just weren't,